So, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Basic Bookkeeping Needs for Small Businesses. I'm Paula McCain. I'm one of the senior business advisors here at the North Central Texas Small Business Development Center. Don't know if you realized it or not, but today is National Chicken Fried Steak Day, National Micro Needling Day, and National Mule Day. So, go celebrate. The SBDC is a leading provider for assistance for the small business community. We are grant funded, and that allows us to provide all of our services, including all of our webinars, to you at no cost. I just want to let you know this session is being recorded and it will be posted to our YouTube channel. Again, we are here for basic bookkeeping needs for small businesses. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat room and Stacy will be monitoring that. We'll answer your questions. I want to introduce Stacy Kildal. She is the founder of Kildal Services LLC, is internationally recognized expert in QuickBooks Online and owner of Kildal Services LLC. Stacy was the first QuickBooks Pro advisor to complete the QuickBooks online certification exam, as well as Intuit's payroll certification exam, and is also certified as an advanced QuickBooks Pro. That is hard to say.
It
QuickBooks
is.
Pro advisor on both desktop and online versions. She's certified Enterprise Solutions Pro advisor and a certified QuickBooks user. So Stacy, thank you for joining us today. I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thank you so much. I really am very excited to be here with all of you guys. I want to thank you, Lauren and Brett and Christy and everybody for asking me back to do this. These are some of my favorite trainings to do is because one of the things that I do as a pro advisor is I get to teach, well, as part of Intuit's Trainer Writer Network, is I get to teach a lot of QuickBooks to a lot of fellow accounting professionals. But my favorite thing to do is to be able to teach small business owners. So that's really what I love to do. So I'm very excited and thank you. We're going to be talking about the accounting lifestyle. We're also going to get in a little bit into product today. We're not going to do such a deep dive. This is really a high-level overview of really what the basic needs that any kind of small business owner needs in order to to get on that path of success, to have a successful business. I do want to call out the North Central Texas SBDC. I have been working with SBDCs basically since I started my business. So this is my 20th year. I did it for 2 years. I started in 2003 and I did it for 2 years as a contractor and started my LLC in 2005. And part of that process was working with my local SBDC center. And then what was really cool is once I started my LLC and I really, kind of started doing a lot more QuickBooks training, I got to do training live at their offices. I cannot stress how amazing your local SBDC center is. So it's what the SBDC is, and I know Paula mentioned it, but just to give a little background, they are a partnership program with the SBA, the Small Business Administration, and it's really designed, and they do have very practical help for small businesses, whether you are a startup or you're an existing business, to really help you prosper and grow your business. It's nationwide network, and it's really provides a lot of resources to help small businesses achieve success and be successful in their communities. I think, Paula, you said most of it. You did. My intro slide is much shorter than that. Like, I do QuickBooks is really what like, if it's QuickBooks, I do it. I do work from home. I've worked from home since 2008. I was pregnant with my second, and I decided I didn't want to drag a 9-pound baby around to every client's office, so I moved completely remote in 2008. One thing that I do want to mention is I have a lot of cats, so you may see 1 or 5, because there's 5 of them, because we're a family of cat ladies in the background, and so I try to push them out of the way. So you may see a cat or 2. but I've been doing this for a really long time. My first version of QuickBooks was 1998, and I've been a member of Intuit's Trainer and Writer Network since 2005. Some of the things that we're going to talk about today, we are going to be talking about the accounting life cycle, just what that looks like, managing the books, balancing your books, maintaining them, and what we can do at the end of a period, whether it's month end or year end, to close those books out. So I want to make sure that I have the chat open in here so that I can see what is going on. Don't. So if you see any questions, I'm not seeing the chat because of the way my screen share is. Just interrupt me, Paul, and say, whoa, stop, we got a question, and I can answer it if you see something. Thank you, I appreciate that. So the accounting lifestyle, this is really, it's exactly what it says on here. So we're going to start at the top, right, where that green dot is, and we're first going to talk about managing, balancing, then maintaining and closing the books. And this is the process of really categorizing all of the transactions that you have that you run into as you're running your business, whether it is, you know, making your first deposit into your business checking account, opening your checking account. It might be recording some purchases. Maybe the first purchase that you made after you made that deposit was to buy a computer for your business. Or maybe you had a computer and you decided to basically donate that to your business. And then reporting all of those transactions during a particular accounting period. And that period may be a day, a week, month, quarter, year. And that's really what this life cycle is talking about. And we're going to talk a little bit about balancing all of those, because one of the things that I have experienced is that a lot of small businesses, they know that they have to balance their checkbook. They know they have to do the bank reconciliation and the credit card reconciliations at the end of the month. But a lot of times what they don't realize is that it's also really advantageous to reconcile a lot of other balance sheet accounts. And we're going to talk a little bit about profit and loss, versus balance sheet today, like a loan. So a loan account is going to be on your balance sheet, and it's really important for you to reconcile that every month as well, so that you're capturing that interest expense. A lot of times what I see on, an auto loan or, an SBA loan, a lot of people have idle loans right now from pandemic, is that they are posting the payment directly to the loan account. And so they're reducing the principal, what they owe on that loan. They're overstating the pay down of that, and they're not recording the expense. So that's one of the reasons why I really recommend that we go through and we balance and we reconcile all of those books. And then it's really important to maintain all of it. So that's why somebody like me might come in, and we're just helping. A lot of times what I do with my monthly services is I am just managing the bank feeds. My clients are doing their work, they're running their business, and my role is to come in, make sure that the bank feeds, the bank accounts and the credit card accounts, the transactions are connected through QuickBooks, and we're pulling all of those transactions in and either matching them to something that's in QuickBooks or adding it if it's not already in QuickBooks. And then that's giving my clients or the small business owners the reporting that they need to make the decisions on how to move forward with their business. And this is, again, where your SBDC comes in, because you can go, you can make appointments with these amazing people, and they're going to say, "Can I see your books?" It's one of the first things you guys ask, isn't it? Can you give me a financial statement? Let me see what's going on. They're going to be able to help you interpret what those reports are, and they're going to help you look at those and really understand them and see what you can do to grow your business. So some of the tasks in the, these are just examples of what some of those tasks in the accountant life cycle may look like. So you might want to check your daily cash position. For my clients, I do this almost every day, if not every other day. Sometimes I might do it a couple times a day, where by check cash position, this is where I'm pulling those transactions in from the bank feeds, and I'm posting those so my clients can log into QuickBooks almost every day and look and see, okay, what is my bank balance right now? What is my credit card balance? And they can see what their cash position is. The other thing that you might do daily or you might do weekly, and these are just examples, you might be recording those transactions. You might be uploading receipts for some source, as source documents. So maybe you've gone to, Staples, or you've purchased some office supplies from some store and you have that receipt. You can upload those, and you don't have to do it every day. But maybe you sit down and you set aside a couple, hours a week to do that. Monthly stuff, we're talking about doing, reconciling those accounts, reviewing any open invoices or open vendor bills that you may have. You might need to process any, payroll tax that's due monthly, or if you are collecting sales tax, you're going to need to review and remit your sales tax filing as well as your sales tax payment. And then quarterly, you may be a quarterly payer. You may be have to pay all of your payroll taxes quarterly and not monthly. So here in Michigan, I live in Michigan, we have some clients who their payroll requirements require them to pay their payroll tax every month. And then I have others that have to pay their payroll tax, their withholding every quarter because it's so low. So you want to make sure that you're looking at that. What are your requirements? And then also some of the stuff is the same. You may be looking monthly at reviewing receivables, but you might also want to look at that on a quarterly basis and then again at the end of the year. So these are just examples, and every business might be just a little bit different. So if you're a realtor, you're probably not going to have any open invoices because you're not sending out invoices. You're getting your commission check when you sell that house, and then you're just making a deposit and posting it to sales. So you can see there's a little bit of differences there. So when we're talking about, I mentioned this, there's 4 different phases. It's going to start with those daily tasks, and then we can kind of schedule some of what to do. You can take that slide that had that checklist, use that as a good jumping off point, and then kind of figure out what your business needs. And this again is another thing where the amazing SBDC people can help you go through that and figure out what you need to do every week, every month, every quarter. So we're going to go through each one of these, and this may not be for each one of these. It may not be daily, just daily, weekly, monthly, or quarterly. So I want to close the books maybe every month. Maybe you want to close the books once you get your bank and your credit cards and your loans reconciled. You may want to go into QuickBooks and close those books and put in a closing date password so that none of the transactions before that date can be edited or changed. You want to close that out. You may do the closing quarterly. So this is what I'm saying, like some of these are a little fluid is what I would use for that. They're not set in stone that you have to do it every week, every month, every quarter. So one of the things is managing the books. This is basically record keeping, right? So managing the books, this is what we're doing to focus on money coming in and money going out. You're going to be recording transaction, maintaining any documents, and do like a final check of any completed tasks. These may be done daily or weekly. And some examples of these might be entering your invoices, like I mentioned, managing the bank feeds, as well as entering or paying any bills. You may not do the enter bill, pay bill. So for my business, I have very few invoices. Most of my clients pay me before I do the work. And I never enter a bill and then pay the bill later because I'm using like my business credit card to pay any subscription fees or anything like that. So I don't have really a lot of receivables, and I don't have any payables because all of mine are credit card transactions and they're happening as they occur. I very rarely have an enter bill and then pay the bill later situation. So I keep talking about bank feeds. And what is the bank feed? So this is, I just want to say, my favorite feature of QuickBooks Online. Like, I love it so much. It makes life so much easier. It's really a live feed of any transactions that have hit a bank account or a credit card account, line of credit, savings account, checking account. And what you're going to do is you're going to set up your bank account and your chart of accounts, and then you're going to go connect your bank feeds, and then you're going to pull transactions. And I have a demo account, and I'm going to show you how to do this in a minute. And you're either going to match a transaction that's already in QuickBooks, or you can enter those transactions directly from the bank feed. The thing to think about with the bank feeds is that it's just sitting there waiting for you to do something. So it's just telling you this is what's hit your bank account, and it's waiting for you to say, yeah, I already entered it into my books, and I just need to tell QuickBooks this transaction matches the one that's already in there, or it's not. One of the things about the bank feeds is that you're not entering something again. You're either telling QuickBooks this transaction from the bank feed matches this transaction in QuickBooks. And so what you're doing is just telling QuickBooks, yes, that has cleared. It's hit the account. It's already through. I don't have to wait for this to come through my bank or my credit card account. And then when you're adding, this is maybe something that hasn't been entered in. And so you're saying, yeah, I want to put this into my books right now. So I'm going to go through these slides real quick. You guys can download the handouts, and these are going to show you some of the screenshots of the transactions. But I want to do my favorite thing, and that's show you how the bank feeds work. So I am logged into QuickBooks Online. And one of the things I do want to call out is, for anybody who's been using it for a while, one of the also new things that I love about QBO, I could talk about QuickBooks Online for like ever, QuickBooks in general. But one of my favorite new things is this customizable left navigation bar. So what you can do is you can click on these little pencils, and this allows you to set up what you need to see over there. So if you don't ever enter bills, you might want to set up some bookmarks it's just what you need to do in QuickBooks. So for this one, this client, they found that this account, we're always using the chart of accounts, we're always using the vendors, we're always going to the bank's transaction, and maybe we're looking at receipts. What's kind of cool here is you can also customize, drag and drop this where it shows up on your left nav bar. So I'm going to go ahead and say save. And so now my bank transactions and my receipts are going to show up here. And then I have vendors and chart of accounts. This is kind of you also can set up a menu bar. So when you set up your menu, this is just all of the stuff in QuickBooks. So for this one, I'm saying I want to look at transactions. I want my sales menu to show up here, all of my expenses, my reports, payroll, and taxes. And then anything else that I tell QuickBooks I don't want on here is going to show up in more. So if I hadn't edited any of this, all of this stuff would be here on the left nav. But I don't need all of this stuff. So I just want to hide that, right? I have realized that I probably have ADHD pretty bad. Probably have ADHD pretty bad. And so for me to be able to get rid of the clutter, that it's not distracting, I can just focus on the things that I need. And this is user specific. So anyway, we're going to go to our bank transactions and show you guys how these work. So this is a demo account. I just want to there's a lot of people who have their hands in this and they're messing around with it. But bank feeds, you can see we've got this one, and it hasn't been updated since 2020. So you can see the last update. If I want, I can click the update and I can manually pull in current transactions. And so we've got an issue here where, it stopped syncing. I can go in and update this now. Like I said, this is a demo account. But for this one, we do have 128 transactions that need to be dealt with. So when you see this number, it's saying QuickBooks is telling you I pulled in 128 transactions and you need to manage these. One of the things that I like to do is go over here to the gear icon, and I just like to set up a couple little settings. I want to have grouping turned on, so as long as this little toggle button is green, that means that I can click on the column headers and I can sort my transaction by bank detail, by date, or by category, which would be an expense or income account. The other thing that I can do is tell QuickBooks I want to see the check number. I have that turned off because I know for a fact that this is a demo account and there are no physical checks that are being written. The other thing that I always want is copy bank detail to the memo field. What this is, when you log into your credit card or your bank account and you look at the transactions directly on your Wells Fargo or your Chase or your Capital One, you're going to see a description of the transaction. This this checkbox here is telling QuickBooks, I want you to copy that into the memo field. If you already have something in the memo field of a transaction, it's not going to override that. It's going to add it to it. So those are just a couple of the settings. And so right now, this is being sorted by bank detail. But what I want to do is I want to sort it by category or match, because what I can look at is I can say, okay, there are 3 transactions, the bank detail is coming in, and if I click into this, this right here is the bank detail. And so it's telling me that this is liquid space. So somebody has gone to a liquid space location and they've paid for office space for the day. And what's really neat is you can see up here this little green thing that says rule, and it's going to show me that there is a rule applied. One of the things that you can do with the bank feeds is you can set up rules. And if we look at this rule, it's called liquid space, and whomever set this up has said, okay, for any money out transaction, any credit card charge or debit transaction in a bank account, for any money out transaction, if the bank text, which is the bank detail, contains the word liquid space, I want QuickBooks to create an expense type transaction. I want it to post it to the rent expense account, and I want the vendor name to be liquid space. And then once you set that, you can say save. So now this is going to save me a lot of time, because I don't have to now search for that, because the rule is already set up, and I can click this and it'll select all 3 of them, and I can go ahead and say accept. I'm not going to do that because I want to leave these here for another time. And so what this is going to do is this is just going to enter those transactions into my credit card, the journal, the general journal. And I have some other ones set up here. So you can see here's a whole bunch of Google ones. Not all of these are going to be advertising, but QuickBooks is trying to say, hey, we think this might be a Google ad. So we're saying, hey, let's put this in advertising. I don't necessarily want this in advertising. So Google storage, this is not going to be advertising. I'm going to select all of these. I'm going to go up here to update, and I'm going to say I want this to be an expense type. I want this to be Google. I would probably call this Google storage. Create a new one. So I'm going to create a new vendor. Say new vendor, and I'm going to say save. And then what I want this to be is I might have office, I don't know what accounts I have here, office supplies. I would probably want to change the chart of accounts to office expense / software, but that's just me. And then I can go ahead and say apply. So what's going to happen for these transactions is you can see that that expense account has now been changed. The vendor has been changed, and then the expense account has been changed from advertising to Google Supplies. And I can go ahead and accept. Right? So instead of dealing with, and then I can create a rule too. So I can even go up here and say, you know what, I want to create a rule, and we're going to call this Google Storage. It's for any money out. So for any account, I want to change this description. So when you're setting up rules, you always want to choose bank detail, because description is just something that QuickBooks makes up, and I cannot figure out where it comes from. It's just something that makes up. So I want to say if the bank text contains the words Google Storage, then I want an expense account, I want it to be office supplies, and I want the vendor name to be Google Storage. I'm going to delete this because I don't want to replace the bank detail. I don't want to replace the memo. I want it to add the memo that's coming in from the bank and put that there. And now I can go ahead and click save. And what's really cool is now you're going to see all of these things. It says Google Storage. I don't know why this is Google Store, but you can see the rule is applied immediately. And so these, 5 or 6 transactions here are going to have that rule applied, and it's going to be really easy for me to manage these transactions moving forward. That's the bank feed. Another thing about managing the books is creating an invoice. This is basically you telling I feel like most business owners know, but the invoice is saying, I'm going to give you these goods and or services, and you are going to pay me. So, or I have already provided these goods or services, and you can pay me at a later date for them. An invoice is always something that's going to be paid later. So when we're looking at these transactions, this is just kind of what it looks like. We'll go into that in a minute, but they can be entered from the plus new button in the top left nav. They can also be entered if you go into your customer record. You can create an invoice directly from a customer record. When that invoice is saved, it is going to, you'll be able to pull an open or accounts receivable report, and it's going to show as an open or an unpaid invoice. What's really cool about QuickBooks Online is we can immediately say, we can create the invoice and immediately send the invoice to that customer. So a couple ways that I can do this. I can go to my sales menu. I can go over to my customers, and I can search for my customers. So you can see I have Betty White's, or we have Clily. This is one of my cats. So what I can do here is I can create a new transaction from the customer record. So this is me looking at the customer detail. I can go over here to my green action button and I can say new transaction, and I can create an invoice from here. The other way that I can do this is I can, over on my left nav, I can choose a plus new, and I can choose to create an invoice, and then I just have to choose the customer that I want to do. So we'll do Clily, and then I'm going to choose, we'll do the date, which is today's date. Little tip, if you are in a date range in QuickBooks Online and you click the letter T, it will take you to today's date. If you do plus, it will increase 1 day from the day that's showing. Minus will go back, right? If you hit minus a couple times, it'll take you back. Some other keyboard shortcuts, if I do M, it takes me to the beginning of the month that's showing. H takes you to the end of the month that's showing. Y takes you to the beginning of the year that's showing. R takes you to the end of the year. So there's a bunch of cool little keyboard shortcuts, but we want to show it today. So it's the 26th. I'm letting QuickBooks do the invoice number automatically. I'm going to drop my products and services down, and we're going to say that we are selling, because this business is called Churros and Burros, and they sell churros and burros. And one of the services that we offer is that we'll give your burro a bath, right? So we're going to do a burro cleaning. We're going to do $300. The class tracking, we're not going to worry about. So we're going to, apparently somebody is a big Below Deck fan. That might have been me, because I watch a lot of Below Deck, so we have a bunch of different Below Deck class tracking. So we're going to choose that service. We can do multiple services if we need to. Maybe they're also buying a bridle for their burro. And so once we do this, we can then say save and close, or we can drop this down and we can say save and send. If we had an email address up here, when we hit save and send, we would be emailing that directly to the client. Maybe your client doesn't do email. Maybe your customer doesn't do email. You can actually do save and share link. And so what happens here is I can, I have to put in an email address. We'll put mine. We'll say, all right. So now we'll save and share link. Say yes. And so now I've got this email address. I can copy this link and I can text it to somebody. I can send it, in a DM on, Twitter or Facebook or whatever. Maybe you are working, you have customers and you have a Slack channel for them, however you want, and you can say, send them that link. If you're using QuickBooks Payments, you can let them pay via credit card or a bank transfer. And I love this, because once they pay, you don't have to do anything. So if you're using QuickBooks Payments and you send the invoice and they pay online, if they've used this service, QuickBooks will record the payment for you. It'll mark the invoices paid. And when the funds hit your bank account, it'll make the deposit for you as well. So that's pretty cool. So I'm just going to
Stacy,
go, yeah.
real quick, for those that don't use QuickBooks, maybe small business owners may just use a spreadsheet or something
Yes.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
How important is it to actually have that paper trail where you create an invoice and you monitor the receipt of the invoice, the payment of the invoice, and all of that? How important is it to make sure those transactions are documented and recorded on your spreadsheet? And
I think it's very important because how are you supposed to know if you got paid, right? Like, I don't want to keep doing work for a customer, and a spreadsheet works. I mean, I'm a big fan of a spreadsheet. As an accounting professional, I use a spreadsheet to track all of my client work. I don't use a project management or a practice management tool. I think it's really important because if you have a customer or somebody that owes you a bunch of money, you're not going to want to keep doing work for them,
Mhm.
and you want to make sure that you're getting paid and that you have those accurate financial records as well. Um, I would say for somebody, if you have more than just a couple transactions, I'm using a piece of accounting software is really amazing because you can pull up those reports. You don't have to filter a spreadsheet. And QuickBooks Simple Start is really easy to use. And if you're just starting out, there's even something called QuickBooks Self-Employed, which is even less expensive than QuickBooks Simple Start. So I think having accurate records it's one of the biggest mistakes that I see with small businesses is they're not tracking the stuff. So they have no idea who owes them. They don't know what they've been paid throughout the year. It makes tax time difficult.
Mhm.
They can get behind on sales tax. I mean, there's all sorts of like issues that can happen with that.
Is there any particular information that should be included on an invoice?
Terms, what are the terms that you're giving? So, well, first of all, what is it you're selling? Your information as a business. The terms of the invoice, is it due on receipt? Are you giving them net 10? Are you saying you have net 30? So this is, 30 days from the date of the invoice. Are you offering any discounts? So the terms are really important. So you can do like a net, 30 days net 10, which means the entire invoice is due in 30 days. But if you pay within 10 days, like it'd be like a 5% net 10, right? So you can take 5% off if you pay me within 10 days. Otherwise, it's due in 30.
Mhm.
So I think, and then where to pay you or how to pay you is also really important. A lot of what I'm seeing right now is clients who maybe aren't using, that are coming to me, they haven't used QuickBooks, they're using like a Venmo link or a PayPal link and they're putting it on their invoice, that maybe they're using and creating in Word, or I have a lot of clients who are creating their invoices in Excel and then saving them as PDFs. And or they're putting in their ACH information and saying, hey, you can pay me via ACH as well. Um, so I think that's all really important because the business or the person that you're giving the invoice to also needs that information, and they need those records for either maybe tax time for them, if it's a business to business, or they just want to have a record if it's a business to consumer, an individual. They're going to want to have those records as well. So you want to make sure you're giving them as much information about you as a business, what you're doing for them, how they can pay you.
Gotcha. Thank
So
you.
thank you. That was a really good question. Um, so then the other thing is to enter and pay bills. So, and here's one of the things that like you're gonna hear me, and I get to do a bunch more webinars. I'm really excited for you guys. But you're gonna hear me talk about customer invoices and vendor bills. So when you get what we call in QuickBooks, it's really important if you're using QuickBooks to understand the terminology. Anything that you send a customer that says you owe me this money is always going to be an invoice in QuickBooks. It doesn't matter what version of QuickBooks you're using. Anything that you get from a vendor that says you owe them, it's going to be a vendor bill. Even if at the top of that piece of paper or that PDF, it says invoice, when we're talking about QuickBooks, it's always going to be a vendor bill. So one of the things that I do when I'm talking to my clients is they'll say, so I have this invoice. And the first thing I do is say, is it something that you gave your customer or is it something that you got from a vendor? And they'll say, I got it from a vendor. And I say, okay, so then we have a vendor bill, right? So this is what we want to make sure that we understand the terminology. A vendor bill is basically an invoice that you've received from another business or individual or contractor or whatever that tells you that you owe them money. So you can record that and they may be giving you terms, right? So they may be saying, I am selling you these products or services and you owe me this in 30 days. So, and maybe they might be giving you a discount as well. So this is, you can enter these very similarly to entering customer invoices, where you can go to a vendor record and you can choose that green action button, or you can go up to the plus new button and do that as well. Once you save a vendor bill in QuickBooks, it is automatically going to hit the accounts payable account. So you'll be able to pull and open, you know, a aging summary, an AP aging summary, or a detail. And then one of the things that we're not going to really cover in this, but those items that we're using on the invoice, those are like the cleaning, the borough cleaning or the bridal. Those are posting to an income account. And so with a vendor bill, we can create an invoice and we can either post the invoice, or we can create a vendor bill. We can post the what we're paying for either directly to an expense account, or we can use an item. So a bridal would be a perfect example. I just created an invoice that has bridal on it. I charge the customer $75. Maybe I pay $50 for those. And so by using items, we can tell QuickBooks this item, I sell it and I also buy it. And so you can see the profitability per item. And then with the vendor bill, what we're doing here is we're saying, I owe this person, this company, this much money, and it's due in X amount of days. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to enter one of those in. The thing about the vendor bills is this is a very common problem that happens is if you have a vendor bill and you enter the bill in, you want to make sure, and I'm going to show you this process in a second, you go to the pay bills feature in QuickBooks. So if I enter, and I can go to my, you know, I can go to my vendor list, which I have right here in my bookmarks. If I go to my vendor list, apparently I have a few. Okay, so maybe I am going to my Churros Supply Supreme, or no, Dorothy Zbornak. So Golden Girls fan here entered this. So we've got Dorothy Zbornak as our vendor, and I can go to my green action button here in the top right corner, and I can choose to enter a bill, or maybe I purchased something directly from them and gave them a check already. So I don't owe them, it's already paid, and I want to record it after the fact. We're going to do a bill. So a bill is something where I have terms, right? I'm paying it later. So I can do that here, or I can also go to my plus new button and choose bill. And we'll type in Dorothy. I like vendor schmender. So we're going to say Dorothy Zbornak. And one of the settings, you can see I put this in and it automatically filled it with advertising for $200. That's because one of the settings that's been set in this QuickBooks account is to remember and to recall the last transaction. So the last time somebody entered a vendor bill or any transaction for Dorothy Zbornak, they were posting that directly to the advertising account, and they were telling QuickBooks, I owe Dorothy $200 later. So we can do that. We can say, hey, I am paying her. She needs to get paid from me in 30 days, and you can change the terms, and maybe this is net 15. So we owe her 15 days from now, $200 for advertising. The other thing that we can do down here is we can choose one of our items. And so we can say, hey, you know, I bought some burros from her, and then put the rate of that. We're not going to do that. We're just going to charge her. This time she's charging us $175 for ad copy. And I'm just going to go save and close. And don't worry about the class tracking because we're not talking about class tracking. So I've entered the bill in, right? So you can see here's the bill for Dorothy, $175. You can see here we owe her a total of $375 instead of just $175, and $200 of it is overdue. So when we go pay bills, there's two ways that we can do it. We can open, like let's say I'm going to filter this and I'm going to say, I just want to look at my open bills, and I'm going to look at that. So I've got these two bills. One of them is 2 years old. Let's take care of Dorothy. We really need to pay our golden girls and make sure that they are paid in a timely fashion. So what I can do here is I can drop this down. One of the weirder things that's a little confusing for new QuickBooks users is this mark as paid. So the schedule payment, that is QuickBooks trying to get you to use its online bill pay system, but maybe you've called her on the phone or maybe you're actually going to print a check out of QuickBooks. In that case, we want to say mark as paid, and this is going to bring up the bill payment. And so what we're going to do is we're going to say we're paying Dorothy, we're paying the $200, we're checking the box off here, we're paying her today, and what we want to do is we are saying it's going to be check number 4568. We want to make sure that we have the correct checking account, right? And what we can do here is we can go down and we can say print check, and now I can go print the check. And you can see I have a lot of other bill payments and checks that need to be printed, but we just want to do Dorothy's. And then you can just preview and then print. So if you've got pre-printed check stock, you're going to put that in your printer. And then my recommendation, if you haven't ever printed a check, is to print this on blank paper and then hold it up to the light in front of the check to make sure that it lines up. And then if it doesn't, don't print it. You're going to close this out and you're going to go, no, keep it all in the print checks list. And you're going to go down here to print setup. And then you're going to go through this all, do the setup. It'll save you a lot of ruining of checks. And the other thing is how it said, like, did this print right? So if I, go into my, print check screen, another place that I can get to is this print check screen. And I decide to print this, right? And I say preview and print. And then I say, okay, I'm done. And then this here, right here, this screen, you're going to save yourself a lot of like hair pulling and teeth gnashing, because make sure if you're printing physical checks that you actually have the check in your hot little hands and it's printed correctly and it's all aligned perfectly before you click yes, because it's going to save you a lot of time. Because if it didn't print right, you just click no and then you're done. So that is enter bill, pay bill. The other thing that you can do with this is if you have multiple bills, maybe you're entering your bills as the month goes or each day or each week, and then you're doing a bill pay every 2 weeks or once a month. If you go to your Plus New and you do pay bills, you can see we have 2 bills that are due. I can go in and say, I want to pay all of these bills, and then I want to mark them to be printed later. And then you can go to that print check screen that we just showed, or that I just showed you, and you can print all of those checks at once. So you don't have to do just one at a time. You can print multiple checks on one check print. So then source docs. The source doc is basically the receipt. So that vendor, that invoice that you got from a vendor, you can scan it, you can take a picture of it, you can upload it, and you can attach it to any of those transactions. So if I were to go to my vendor bill and I'm just doing my search, and you can see here is I'm doing my search up in the top right, and I'm saying here's the bill for $175. Down at the bottom, I can find transactions that are saved on my, here's a fun picture. So this is me in 1986. I took a lot of tap. So you can attach anything. So if you have the receipt saved as even a picture or a PDF, you can attach it to the transaction and save and close. And there you are, you're storing your source documents right in QuickBooks. So if your accountant or your tax preparer or anybody else comes and says, what was this bill? Once we save this, I'm going to go ahead and save. Once we save this transaction, you can open this up and say, oh, the source doc is right there. Here it is. This is not the receipt. This is obviously a picture of me in 6th grade doing a tap recital, but you get the picture, right? I don't know what else is in my file, so I just picked that. So you always have those source documents, and the source documents is going to basically verify the amount of the transaction date, what the purpose of it is, like what it is that you're buying or you're selling, to whom the transaction is going to. So this might be a bank statement, vendor bill, a purchase order from a customer, any kind of receipt. One of the things too that could be attached is it could possibly be, this is my little lady here. It could possibly be in a customer record, you could be saving maybe a signed estimate or a W-9 or any kind of documentation that you have. And so if we look at that, if we go into our, maybe we go into our vendors and, let's go to Dorothy. I can go into my vendor record and I can click edit, and maybe she's given me her W-9 or a sales tax certificate or anything, right? Any kind of contract that you might have, you can also attach those to customer records as well as vendor records, not just transactions. So I love the storage capabilities for source docs with QuickBooks, very, very much so. So then we're talking about bank reconciliations, and this is the balance part. I talked about this a little bit. So this would be reconciling your bank and your credit cards every month, as well as any loans or lines of credit, so that you can make sure that you're capturing that the expense part, the interest expense. And then you're going to want to review any past due AR, AP. You probably, if you have inventory, you're going to want to do inventory at least once a month, as well as reviewing any payroll and payroll tax payments. And then if you have sales tax as well, you know, I have some clients who their sales tax is technically due, because in Michigan we have a really easy sales tax. It's 6% across the state. There's no county, city, anything like that. And it's there's no tax on services. So if you're an auto repair shop, you're gonna and you've got, you know, the lube, oil, filter, and then labor, you're charging sales tax on everything but the labor to do the oil change. So and they have generally it's due, for some of them it's due quarterly, but we like to pay it monthly because those smaller bites are easier to chew and swallow rather than paying a large chunk of sales tax at the quarter. And trust me, the state's never going to get angry that you pay them ahead of time. Like, no sales tax agency is going to be mad about that. And then you may want to be looking at your income statement, or you know, your P&L. That's another word for income statement. Your balance sheet, and you might also want to be looking at a statement of cash flows as well. Reconciling is basically just making sure that what you have in your accounting system matches what the bank has. Sometimes we make mistakes in QuickBooks, and sometimes the bank makes mistakes. And I've seen checks get cashed twice. Or I've seen transactions that were on the bank statement that never came through the bank feed for some reason. So that maybe that was a period of time where QBO was doing a maintenance update, and maybe the bank account or the bank website was doing an update. So maybe some transactions didn't get entered in QuickBooks, or maybe somebody accidentally excluded them and then they never got entered in. So what you're going to want to do a bank reconciliation is you're going to want to collect your source document, which is basically, I think, the statement that needs to be reconciled. And then when we go in and do this, the first time you do a bank rec in QuickBooks, the starting balance is going to be 0 because you've never reconciled anything. And so don't worry about that. You're going to enter in your ending, you know, the statement ending balance from the statement, as well as the date on the statement, and then go ahead and say start reconciling. And I'm going to show you how to do this. This is really difficult to like demonstrate without an actual real account, but I'm going to do it as best I can. This is a really good screenshot, because basically you're showing we're showing like a fake bank statement here, and we're saying we're taking this information and we're making sure and we're verifying. So we're looking at our beginning balance from our statement, and we're making sure that the beginning balance in QuickBooks or our starting balance in QuickBooks matches. And then we're going to put in the statement ending balance, which is right here, and then the statement ending date. So as we're doing the bank reconciliation, what you're going to do is you're going to check off each transaction in QuickBooks that you see on the statement. What I do is I like to have the PDF. Back in the day, I used to have the paper statement with a pencil, little pencil, and I would check it off. And then if it didn't balance, I'd have to erase all those little check marks and then start all over again. But I don't have to do that, because now I have a PDF. I can have that up, and I can use the highlight tool in, you know, whatever my PDF editor is, and I can highlight the transactions in QuickBooks, or highlight the transactions on the statement that are matching what I see in QuickBooks. When you're done, and I'll show you this, you can see here this difference right here on the screen. When it says 0, you're done with the bank reconciliation. So if you've gone through and you've compared your statement to everything in QuickBooks, and you've highlighted or, you know, done whatever in the statement, and this balance doesn't equal 0, you kind of have to start all over again, right? You're going to need to kind of figure out where that mistake happened. So in QuickBooks, to do that reconciliation, one of the things, so because I'm logged as an accountant user, I have a little different way of doing it. But for most small business owners, they're going to go up to their gear icon, and then they're going to go reconcile. And then we can say here, we want to choose, we'll choose this Capital One account, and we'll just say our statement ending balance. And again, I don't have a statement, so I'm just going to say it's $1,000. And we want to do it for last month. And I'm going to start reconciling. So one of the things, and there's of course nothing in here. Of course there's nothing in here. Let's try another account. Let's try this one. Resume reconciling. Okay, so this has transactions, right? So this is where the bank feeds, what the heck? This is where the bank feeds come into play and make things a little bit easier again. Because if you're using bank feeds, you are going to see these matched, and this is being weird. So what you're going to see is it's going to automatically check off the transactions. So anything that's been matched or added through the bank feeds is automatically going to be checked off here when you come and do your bank reconciliation. So that's another added, not only does it make it easy to keep up on your cash flow and get a lot of transactions, credit card transactions or debit card transactions entered in quickly, it's also going to make your bank reconciliation go a lot faster. So you can see, somebody has started this bank reconciliation and they have started checking off everything. Their difference here is not 0, so they would have to go back and start. Once you're all done, you're going to go ahead and you're going to say finish now. If it was a 0 and the difference was 0, it would just give you the option to finish now. We want to go ahead and I'm going to say close without saving so that somebody else down the road can use this again. So that's basically reconciling. Well, another thing is when we're talking about balancing the books, you're going to want to review your AR, your open receivables. What does everybody owe you? Your accounts payable, what do you owe? Again, you're going to want to look at the inventory, payroll tax, filings as well as payments. This is just some screenshots of some of those reports that you can look at. There's AR aging summary. You can also look at an accounts receivable detail report. You can look at an AP, so accounts payable aging summary, as well as a accounts payable detail report. So those are some things that you're going to want to look at. And then inventory counts. So there are some inventory worksheets. There's a physical inventory worksheet. This is something for you to print, or you can save it as a PDF and you can give to your employees and they can go through and do a physical count. And then we have inventory evaluation summary. If you're using inventory, you can go in and make adjustments to inventory. So if you have inventory that has grown legs and walked away, you can go in and adjust your inventory. So maybe, in QuickBooks, you're showing that you have 14 routers, but really you only have 13. You can go in to QuickBooks and make that adjustment. And you can either choose to do a physical, like a quantity adjustment, or a valuation adjustment. Most people are doing, what is going on with my computer? Most people are going to be doing quantity adjustment, and any kind of valuation may be done at the end of the year with your tax preparer if needed. I'm trying to think of anything else. I think that's it. Payroll, one of the things that I do for all of my clients who want me to do payroll, we put them on QuickBooks Online Payroll, and they have an auto pay, auto filing feature. So I just have to make sure that everything is in there, everything is set up correctly. I process the paychecks, and then at the end of the month or end of the quarter, QBO will automatically schedule the payment as well as submit the form filings. So it makes it really easy. You can do it yourself, but honestly, if QuickBooks is going to do it, just let QuickBooks do it. So you can set up any of your employees. One of the cool things too is Intuit Online Payroll, or QuickBooks Online Payroll, has something called workforce. So when you enter a new employee, you can invite that employee to workforce. They can go in, they can edit all of their personal information, as well as put in, update their filings, their withholding information, as well as their direct deposit information as well. It's kind of like a, self-service. And then if you go over to your left nav, we've got payroll taxes. And this is just going to show you, I'm doing screenshots here because I don't have an active payroll account because it's a demo account. But you can go into your payroll tax center and you can see like what payments have been made recently. So those recent tax payments, as well as any upcoming tax payments. And then you can also go in and view any archived form filings. So, your 941 or whatever your state quarterly unemployment or withholding is. Texas has withholding, right? They have withholding, because I know like Florida doesn't have payroll withholding, but Texas does, right?
Let's see, in Texas, through the Texas Workforce Commission, you can actually pay your payroll tax through them.
Okay, but you guys have withholding tax for personal, like you have like federal withholding tax that's taken out of check, and then you also have state withholding?
No, we do not have state.
Oh, la-di-da,
I
fancy
know,
pants.
right?
So I didn't know that. I knew Florida didn't, and I know Tennessee doesn't. There's like 6 or 8 states that don't have
Yeah.
any withholding.
Yeah.
So then y'all don't have to worry about the withholding. It'll
No,
just do the
not from a
quarterly
state
filings.
perspective.
Yeah. So then we're talking about financial statements, preparing financial statements. We talked about profit and loss versus income account. So what this report is, this is showing you over a period of time, how much money did the business take in? How much money did the business spend? And then what's left over? That's going to be your net income. And hopefully there's no net loss. Hopefully you didn't pay out more than you took in over that period of time. And that period of time, like we've talked before, could be a day, a week, month, quarter, year. Most businesses are looking at month to date, quarter, year to date. I don't know too many who are looking at this on a, like, I just want to look at this week. And then a balance sheet. When we're talking about a balance sheet, this is like a snapshot in time. So your balance sheet can change from the morning to the afternoon. So maybe you didn't create any invoices or take any money in or spend any money that was directly related to the business, right? So maybe today I log in, I'm not receiving any payments or creating any invoices, I'm not paying any utilities or anything like that, but I do have to send a tax payment out. Maybe I have to send up a payroll tax payment. So that's not going to be reflected on my P&L for today, but it will be reflected on my balance sheet because I'm taking money out of my checking account to pay down a liability, and those are both on the balance sheet. So your balance sheet is a snapshot in time, and it kind of shows you like what you have, like the assets minus the liabilities, and that's going to equal the equity that you have, and kind of shows you an example of like what your business would be worth. You generally, as a general rule, you want to have more assets than liabilities, right? Like that's a good general rule. So when we're looking at the profit and loss, if we go to a P&L, this is just a standard report. We've got our reports here on our menu. If I go over to my reports, standard report, I've got my P&L. Any reports in QuickBooks, if you say I want to look at a balance sheet detail, if you click this little star, it'll turn up here in your favorites, right? I don't want my balance sheet detail there, but we've got our P&L. If you're not sure, you can start searching. So I can start typing in profit and loss, and I'm going to say, okay, my profit and loss. It's just going to automatically pull that up. Maybe I want to change the dates here to all dates, and I want the total by years. I want this cash basis, I can run the report. So you can look at and you can create comparison reports and say, what did I do this year versus last year versus the year before? What did I do this quarter versus last quarter? So if I want, I can, choose custom, and I can say, you know what, I want from last year to today, let's look at this by quarter. So from the beginning of 2022 to today, and it's going to break out my income and my expenses by each quarter. So I can look at it. You can see 2023 for this business, not a lot going on, not a lot. So that's one of our reports. We can always go back to our report list, and we can look at our balance sheet. Again, this is going to be in the standard. I have it favorited, but if I wanted, I could just, do a search for it, and I could say I want to look at my balance sheet. And it's by default, because that's the way I have my preferences set up, it's looking at last month. Again, I can say, you know what, I want to look at this as of today, and I want to look at it at cash basis and run the report. So at this point in time, my checking account has $142,000. I have $1,500 in machinery and equipment. I can roll these up, so I can just, look at what my total assets are. And then my credit cards, I owe about $4,000 in my credit cards. I have an idle loan from pandemic times that I'm still paying off. And then, so my net income at this point is a negative, $310. But my total liabilities and equity is going to equal my assets. So that's the one, like accounting 101. Your assets equals your liabilities plus your equity. Another way to look at that is equity equals assets minus liabilities. And so right now, this is a picture. This is a pretty healthy business right here, right? So they have more assets than they do liabilities, right? So basically they've got about $129,000 of equity in the business because they have all the current assets they have, which is going to be, if we're looking at this on a accrual basis, it's going to be any receivables, any money that is owed to the business. Let's look at this receivables. The numbers are going to change a little bit because now we've got our AR on here. So anything that somebody owes you is an asset. So our business looks like it's in a little bit better position because our liabilities aren't changing on an accrual basis, right? We still owe the same credit cards. We do have a little bit in accounts payable, but it's a little less than what we have in our receivables. So you can see our equity that we have when we factor in accounts receivables and accounts payables is we have about $132,000 in equity, which is what you want. You want to have, like, if all the credit card companies and all of your vendors said, pay me now, you want to be able to either have enough cash in the bank or be able to, call in your receivables from your customers, or be able to sell your assets to be able to pay off what you owe. So that's a balance sheet. Statement of cash flows. Statement of cash flows, this is where we track how money was spent during a given reporting period. So this is going to show 3 different types of cash flow. It's going to be operating. This is going to be the bottom line from your P&L or your income statement, basically your net income. And then we have financing. The financing activities are going to be any balance sheet activity. So this is going to be cash in the bank, maybe a draw on a line of credit. And then we have any investing activities. And this would be cash spent to purchase an asset. So like maybe a new piece of machinery or some office equipment or something like that. So statement of cash flows, I'll be honest, I've sent clients their statement of cash flows. They tend to not take a look at that too often. So then just talking about, I'm gonna stick to slides for the rest of this because I know we're coming up on time here. There's different types of quarterly taxes. You may have payroll tax if you are collecting sales tax, and then you may have some estimated income tax for the business where you want to pay any estimated taxes for the year. And so QuickBooks is not going to track your estimated income tax. That's going to be something that you're going to work with your tax preparer. If you've been in business for a while, they're going to give you your vouchers and they're going to say, here's what we estimate that you need to pay every quarter. One of the things that I do for my clients is I will enter those in as a bill so that they know that those payments are coming due. Some of the other taxes that we have are possibly sales tax and payroll tax, and I don't want to like beat this dead horse, but we've already talked about that. If you're collecting sales tax, if you're required to collect sales tax, you need to remit it to your sales tax agencies. Like I said, here in Michigan, it's just one. We pay it to the state. It's 6%. When you look at the sales tax center, it's going to show you once you have the sales tax set up, and I really recommend working with someone who is familiar with sales tax. And if anybody needs a good sales tax CPA, I know an amazing firm in the Houston area. They are like I love them. The firm is called Thomas, Thomas and Thomas. Or maybe it's just Thomas and Thomas. It was like two sisters and their mom, but I think their mom recently passed away. So it might just be Thomas and Thomas now. If you search for Mary Thomas CPA, she's amazing. So you would want to make sure that you are up to date. QuickBooks will tell you what you owe in sales tax and give you the information for you to go to your sales tax agency and make that payment. It will not make the payment for you. However, if you're using QuickBooks Online Payroll, it will go, if you have the automatic payments taxes turned on, it will make the payment and submit the filings and the payments for you. So when we're talking about quarterly estimated income taxes, every business has to monitor their net income and have to pay any estimated income tax payments to federal and state authorities. This is an example of what your CPA or your tax preparer may look at, or what you can open up and send to them for the calendar year so that you can look at the P&L by quarter. And so just because your CPA says, hey, this is what you owe every quarter, you may want to work with them and say, hey, can we review this quarter? What do I owe? Because it may be more or less than what they estimated that you were going to have to pay when they did your taxes previously. You can also use reporting to review how profitable your company is, basically learn how to identify opportunities for improvement, like the slide says. One of the things that you can do, and I do this often, is I will pull a P&L, and I do this for a couple of my clients, this kind of advisory work. Like, let's look at, we're just going to pretend that this is this year. So I may look at a P&L, there's not really much on here, for a client, and I might say, hey, you know what, I was looking at your P&L, and this quarter, it seems like payroll is really high compared to last quarter or to last month. What's going on? And the client may say, oh, yeah, we did a lot of work, we just haven't been paid for it yet, right? So if we're looking at a cash basis, so I do this for my repair shops a lot, because I have found, I do a lot of work with auto repair shops. I have found that like they have a tendency to let labor get a little high because they're giving raises, but then they're not raising their rates, that their labor rate that they're charging their customers. So that can get a little off. So whenever I see one of my auto shops give raises to the employees, one of the first things I do the next month is I review their P&L, and I say, you gave everybody raises, so you're raising your labor costs. You might want to take a look at what your labor rate is, and maybe bump it up even $2 or $3 or $5 or whatever it is, so that you're kind of in line with that. So that's just an example of one of the how you can use reports to like make decisions about your business. We're closing the books. Most closings are either done monthly or definitely annually. And to do this, we're going to go into our gear icon. We're going to go into account and settings, and then we're going to go down to advanced. And we can say, I want to close the books. So you can say, I want to close the books. We'll say, this is 12/31/22. And here's the deal. So you can say allow changes after viewing a warning, or you can say allow changes after viewing a warning and entering a password. I used to require a password. I no longer do that. And the reason why is because it's really easy. Anybody with admin rights can go in here and change the closing date if they want, and change the closing date password. As long as you have access to QBO and you have admin rights, you can do this. So my thing, and it took me a while to get to this, another one of our trainers is like, let anybody make the changes, because one of the tools that your bookkeeper or your accounting professional has is they have this report once they close the books. And I don't know if it's going to show up here, but as an accountant user, we have a little bit of different stuff that we can look at versus like our clients, where we can go into the reports, and I don't know if it's going to show up. We have this report called closings, exceptions to the closing date. And so if we don't require, and we don't have any because there aren't, so this report is going to be blank, but this is where you can work hand in hand with your bookkeeper or your CPA or your accountant. You can close the books and just offer the warning if you want, because that way anybody that's in QuickBooks, if they make changes to the books, your accounting professional that you're working with can open that exceptions to closing date report and go in and see what happened. Because if you require a password and somebody gets frustrated and they say, I'm just going to go change the closing date or change the password, you're not going to be able to see that change. So I say just let it happen, go for it. And then you want to deliver that to your tax preparer. And by deliver, I mean just give them access to your QBO. It's going to save everybody a lot of time and hassle, that you don't have to download the reports and send them. You can just invite them as an account user to your books. And then they can go in and they can review any reports. They can make any final adjustments, year-end or month-end adjustments or anything like that you need to. And then you can also ask your accountant to prepare maybe they're called management reports in QBO. Small business owners can access them. And they're just, if we go to reports and we go to our management reports here, they're just pretty packaged. So if we look at this and say preview, it's just a really nice, pretty package. If you were a business owner and you were trying to get funding, this might be something that you would want to save as a PDF or print out and take to your bank or whomever you're trying to get funding from, or maybe some kind of investor, because it's going to show your logo. It's going to show you, what you can title the management report, whatever you want. And then you can add whatever reports from QuickBooks into that report. So there's some tools to make it easier for you. And then, like I said, closing the books, this is going to lock it. It's going to prevent any unauthorized changes. We kind of went through this. Whether or not you want to use the password is up to you. Deliver to your tax preparer. With every version of QBO, if we go over here to our gear icon and we go to manage users, Simple Start, Essentials, Plus, they all allow you to have 2 accountant users. So what Intuit is thinking with this is a bookkeeper and a tax preparer, or like a QuickBooks Pro Advisor, or an SBDC counselor and your tax preparer, so that they can help you get this stuff ready. QuickBooks Online Advanced offers 3 accountant users for small business owners. And that's it. We are done. I just want to take one more minute to just talk a little bit about what SBDC offers. There is advising. This is confidential advice. It's for startups. It's for existing businesses, and they're going to help you with loans, financing, financial statement analysis. They'll help with marketing, advertising. There's so much stuff. Training like this, but other workshops as well. And then also there's a lot of other resources that you guys can access through your local SBDC website that are going to give you a wide range of options and really help you be successful. And so I can't suggest it enough, like go to their website and make an appointment and talk to your local SBDC center. They're amazing. They're so helpful. And that's it. Any questions?
Wow.
Do that again. I missed that. Not just that last part.
From the beginning, where the dot started.
Right.
Brett.
Yes?
You're not muted.
Okay, did you have questions?
I have so many questions about accounting in general. That was great because you're using QuickBooks.
I have
Just
a couple.
reconciliation for me, seems like that's the harder part
Oh.
to make sure, because if you're closing, for example, you're trying to do a monthly, but yet your bank account processes it maybe 2 to 3 days later. Sometimes that may be, like at the end of the month, for example, hey, I was doing my Halloween thing on the 31st, so all of those sales that went out, oh wait, they weren't processed until the next month in November. And so I can see where reconciliation can kind of is why accountants are needed so well.
Well, and that's one of the ways that the bank feed helps, because when you go and do the bank reconciliation, the bank feed recognizes when those transactions hit. So you might have a transaction that is dated in October, but doesn't actually clear your bank and credit card until November. And QuickBooks Online will recognize that, because one of the things that when you go to the bank rec screen, and like I said, it's really difficult for me to demo a bank rec, is one of the columns is transaction date and the other one is cleared date.
Yes.
So it'll show you, and it'll hide everything after, in that cleared date, it'll hide everything after the statement ending date. So this is why I love the bank feeds so much.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was just thinking doing that in Excel, for example, trying to reconcile everything all the time. You really need to be on top of it every month for some of our small businesses that we attend to.
Yeah, and I'm
That may
actually,
not have a program.
yeah, and I work with a pretty large HVAC company in Texas, and for a few years I have been trying to get them to connect their bank feeds so that they can manage that cash flow, and they're finally doing it. They're using Enterprise, they're not using QuickBooks Desktop, so you can still use the bank feeds. And so they're finally like, oh, hey, this is really helpful for us to manage our cash flow. I'm like, yes, it really is. So they're going in and they're making sure that their deposits match perfectly with what's hitting the bank account, because historically it hasn't. They're not posting their deposits correctly. The credit card payments, the credit card processing fees weren't getting recorded accurately, and so now they're really doing that, and it makes the reconciliation at the end of the month so much easier, because every day they're pulling in transactions from the bank feed and they're telling QuickBooks, yes, this cleared, so that when they do get to the end of the month and they do the reconciliation, everything that's hit the bank that month is already marked and already checked off.
Hey, Stacy, this is Roger. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. A quick question for you. I know the version you went through was the online version of QuickBooks, and they're still doing the desktop version as well. I guess, do you have an opinion on either or for the small businesses, and maybe any approximate costs that we could pass along to the small businesses as far as what QuickBooks is charging now for the basic use?
So you can go to pricing. I think the SBDC has special pricing as well. So I mean, you can just go to QuickBooks.com and look at the pricing. I have lots of opinions about every version of every version of QuickBooks. I like them all. I think at this point, in the year of our Lord 2023, if you can, unless you have a specific need for desktop, I can't recommend QBO enough. It makes it absolutely so simple for you to work with your SBDC counselor, with your bookkeeper, with your accounting professional, with the other people. They can access it from anywhere. Just the ease of use, I think, kind of overrides some of the stuff that desktop does better. That being said, there are some businesses like that HVAC company that I just mentioned. They're using a field service solution. They're using a program for their field service management that only talks to QuickBooks Enterprise, which is the most expensive version of the desktop. And so they have to stay on Enterprise because they really love their field service management tool. So, but other than that, like I can't recommend QBO enough. It just makes it easy. And for most small businesses, I mean, like I have about 50 monthly bookkeeping clients now. I don't have any that are on advanced right now. Most of them are on plus, and some of them are using essentials. And you can go to, if you go to QuickBooks, I think it's just QuickBooks.com. I'm looking right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, Paula, do you guys still get discounts for SBDC discounts for the product? Yeah, you could
not
go
an-
to,
It's not an SBDC discount, but there are some discounts that we just find that are advertised out there, but nothing
okay,
specific
cool.
for
And
SBDC.
yeah, and pro advisors also, if you're working with a pro advisor, we can offer discounts as well. And the website, and I'll put it in the chat for pricing, is just quickbooks.intuit.com/pricing.
Hey,
Thank you.
Stacy, can you?
Appreciate it.
Oh, I'm sorry, Roger, you.
Yeah, I was just saying thank you, and I was also admiring the typewriter over Stacy's shoulder there.
Oh, the Lego, it's a Lego typewriter.
Oh,
A
even
Lego.
better.
Yeah, it almost killed me. So we build a lot of Lego in our house. Like I'm actually in the process of building a new flower bouquet. And by we, I mean mostly me and sometimes my kids help me. Like, I mean, you can see all my Lego over here. But the typewriter, that almost did me in. It was the most difficult Lego build I have ever done. And we have like the Nintendo one where it's like a TV screen and you can crank it and Mario goes across the screen. And the typewriter almost killed me, so thank you. I appreciate you calling that out. I'm very excited about that.
Stacy, real quick, if we could, I have one question. Talk to me about accrual versus cash.
So the difference between accrual and cash is, so when we're talking about invoices, most businesses, unless they have inventory, they're probably going to be cash basis. And that means you are recording the income when you get paid for it. You're recording the expense when you pay it. So I can look at reports on accrual or cash basis, regardless of how I file those taxes, but it's going to look a little bit different. A P&L cash basis is not going to show any open invoices, right? So if you are cash basis and you send an invoice today, but you don't get paid until December, when you look at a P&L on cash basis, that invoice will not show up until you get paid in December, but that income will show up in December. If I'm accrual basis, it doesn't matter when I get paid. The income is recorded and reported in the period that the invoice is created. So if you're cash basis, you don't necessarily have bad debt. If you don't get paid, you just don't get paid and you're not reporting that sale. If you are accrual basis, you are reporting that income to the IRS or the state when the invoice is created. And then if maybe, next year, by the end of next year, you still haven't been paid for it, then you will be able to write that off as bad debt and you'll be able to take that bad debt expense. So the difference is when you record and report the income or the expenses. An accrual is when the invoice is created or when the vendor bill is added into QuickBooks, and cash basis is when the invoice is paid from your customer or you pay the vendor.
Okay. We've had a question come in. Ken is asking, he says, I have 5+ expenses per day and some do not hit my business bank account. Does QBO now have an integrate service like Expensify where you can take a picture of your receipt and it automatically
Automatically, I love that.
enters it as an expense?
So kind of. So you can use, if you're using Expensify or like Bill.com or any kind of like bill pay or expense reporting system, you can, though most of them will sync with QBO, and you could go to apps.com and search for some of them if you don't have them, and they will push information in. If you have a situation where you're not using one of those, you can take a picture, and Intuit has something, and you can do it from the mobile app. You can download the mobile app on your phone, and you can take a picture and you can upload an expense or receipt or whatever, and add it as an expense or a bill, and it's called receipt capture. So when you upload a receipt into the receipt capture area, it does allow you to say, I want to enter this as an expense that's already happened, or you can enter it as a bill that has to be paid later. And what's really cool with the receipt capture, and I wish I had something I could show you, is if you have a transaction that's already been entered through the bank feed and then you upload an expense, the OCR will read that and it'll say, hey, I think it's this transaction that's already in QBO, and it'll try and match it. And then on the flip side of that, if you enter it in through the receipt capture as an expense or a vendor bill and a transaction comes in through the bank feed, it would be able to match that as well. It's really cool. So it's kind of automatic, but not quite. It's like not going to automatically enter it as an expense. You still have to kind of manipulate the receipt once you get it into QBO.
He says, great, thanks. Expensify is great, but kind of spendy.
Yeah, I agree. And Intuit has a brand new product that they're rolling out called Bill Pay that allows you to pay your vendors. And I don't know if they're going to expand that into being something a little bit more like Expensify, but take a look at the receipt capture and kind of play around with it. One thing about the receipt capture I think that's really cool is you can set up, as long as the person is a user in QBO, you can set it up so that you can create like a company name at whatever Intuit, like QuickBooks.com. And so if I am set up as a user in QBO and I get some kind of receipt that's attached, I can just automatically forward it and it'll show up in the receipt capture screen. But you have to be a user in that QBO. And it doesn't really work for like me because I have like 50 clients. So I can only be set up as a user to forward to receipt capture for one QBO account at a time. But it's pretty cool. I really like the receipt capture. I use it for like almost all my clients.
Cool. Cool. I always love new toys. That's great.
I do too.
Well, I have brought up I've shared a screen here talking about our upcoming webinars, and these are just the ones that we've got prior to Thanksgiving. We have some more in November, and we also have some in December. So Stacy will be back next week for budgets, and then Ashley Smalley will be here for Unity, Leading Toward Unity, a good leadership series, and then Stacy's back. Yay. Time management and QBO, and then Ashley will be back, Foundations of Leadership. And just want to share with you all that you can actually use the QR code at the top of that slide to schedule for any of the upcoming trainings. It'll take you right to our website. And you can get contact information, you can schedule an appointment, or find other resources that are available out there for business owners. We want to thank those that actually give us the funding that allows us to provide all of our services and resources to you at no cost. That would be the Small Business Administration, the state of Texas, North Texas SBDC Regional Office, and North Central Texas College, our host. I appreciate everyone showing up today and joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time. And this will end the webinar. Y'all have a great one. Go
See you
get
guys.
a chicken fried steak.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.